All right, guys, coming at you today with 3 tips for a better press down, typically a better tricep press down. And before I give you those secrets to some massive horseshoe triceps, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Tell some friends and help the channel keep on growing. But basically, we're gonna go through 3 tips that should be helpful for pretty much any type of press down. I'm gonna discuss towards the end maybe which handle we're gonna use. But the first thing I want to discuss is body position, and really body position relative to the cable, and even more specifically, that cable position relative to the elbow joint. So again, if the goal is training triceps maybe minus the long head has a little bit of shoulder influence, but for the most part, triceps are a big elbow extensor. So if we're concerned about what the triceps are doing, where this cable is at a given point in the range of motion relative to that elbow will change things drastically. So basically where you stand and where your elbow is as you're going through the range of motion changes the exercise and drastically changes what part of it is challenging. I'm not going to get into too much stuff with programming. I'll say one thing just a little bit here or there, but basically I think there's merits for both positions. So first position basically, and everyone kind of knows this, but I'm going to try and make a little bit more clarity about why that is basically. But for the first position, if you stand very far back, keep your upper arm kind of pulled and nice and still, and you go all the way to extension, this position is very challenging. And by this position, again, think we're training muscles, we're not just moving shit. We're thinking about our triceps, we're thinking about what's happening in your elbow. So when at full elbow extension, this position is the most challenging. Whereas I come up here, everyone pretty much knows there's not a whole lot going on here. I mean, it's not too hard for me to move the cable. And in reality there's really is nothing going on here. This is little to no torque. So I could go through this same amount of elbow flexion. So I could literally go from here, let's call this 90 degrees. So I'm about 90 degrees of elbow flexion, and I'm fully extending to 180 degrees of elbow extension, and going through this range of motion with this body position, full extension, a fully contracted tricep. This is very challenging. And as I go probably through the mid-length of a tricep and kind of in the middle of elbow flexion extension, there is no challenge. Now, if I stand a lot closer and I go right through this position, now when I'm doing this, as I come to the bottom, there's still a little bit of challenge there. It's not nothing, but really now this position right in the middle is the most challenging. So again, going through the range of motion, and all that is if you look, and I'll kind of clarify this on my sweet board, but if we look at where the cable is relative to the elbow joint, the difference is here, now at this mid-range, mid-tricep length, mid-elbow flexion, this is close to this line of force, this cable is close to basically the furthest distance right here in this mid-range, and it gets much closer to that elbow joint as I come to the end. Or when I'm back here, it's the opposite. Basically, it's very far away here, making it the most challenging here, and very light in that position. So even though in both my elbow is just doing this, going through 90-ish degrees range of motion, where that cable is relative to that elbow changes where it's the most challenging. So let's take a look at the sweet board. First off, I drew this and I realized this is a pretty big board, and I draw everything real small. I remember when I was in like 3rd grade and I used to write, I'd write real tiny on lines, and my teacher would be like, you got plenty of space. And basically that has just continued until today. So what we saw in 3rd grade has carried all the way out through here. So I apologize, but again, I think this will help for most people. So again, this basically is showing what happens when we're at full elbow extension. So these 2 pictures are comparing elbow extension in 2 different body positions. Just to clarify my sweet drawings, this is a head, this is a body. Apparently on this one, the upper arm is attached directly to the neck, right to the head. So it's like coming right out of the side of the skull, but you get the idea. So again, body, and then we've got these joints. We've got upper arm, and we've got lower arm, and we've got cable. So again, if you're new here, I'm gonna talk a little bit about moment arms and torque, not to sound neat or cool, but realizing what your body perceives is torque at joints. What your muscles do is manage that torque at joints. So when we're really talking about the challenge a muscle faces, it's a combination of load times moment arm equals torque. And so all that means is load and moment arm are of equal importance as far as the challenge. And this is why every single exercise for the most part in your body feels hard somewhere and feels easy. This is why squats are horrible at the bottom and really easy at the top. So I'm gonna link that video somewhere around here if you guys wanna check that one out and have a little bit. I try to keep it relatively simple, but I'm referencing that, and if you're kind of like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Not trying to sound smart, because I'm not smart, but just trying to basically be accurate for why this feels so different. So again, if we're looking at full elbow extension when we're walked far back, this is the cable, which in this case is the line of force. We look where that at full elbow extension is closest to the train joint, which is also a 90-degree angle, so closest to the joint, 90-degree angle, and we will see this blue line, moment arm is always a distance, is long. So you don't have to know anything. If this cable has 50 pounds on it, 50 pounds times this number equals torque. And so all you have to know is this is long. If we go over here and we compare the same body position, so you see the body is the exact same position. We're at full elbow extension, same body position, arms at the side. This would be walked extremely close to the cable. So again, you see my head here is 8 feet away. Here it's 8 inches away. And when I go to full extension here, that cable is very close to the elbow joint. And so again, the exact number isn't important unless you like doing math and you're in class and you need to calculate torque at a joint. But all you have to know is, let's say hypothetically, this is 5 times longer than it is right here. So for the same 50-pound cable pulling this direction, when you're at this body position, it's literally going to be 5 times the torque at the elbow joint, assuming this drawing is relatively accurate, and it's going to be 5 times less at the elbow joint. So literally the exact same weight on the cable, the exact same body position, but where you stand and how that changes the cable relative to the tricep, and more importantly, the elbow joint, changes the amount of torque, changes the amount of challenge for the triceps. This is the same position at the top now. So now again, we're looking at, I tried to have it somewhere around 90 degrees. This is obviously a little bit less than 90 degrees, elbow flexion extension. You get the idea. So again, this is when I'm walked far back and I was saying, hey, look, this is almost nothing. Well, basically, if we draw out the line of force, so this is the cable, the line of force is going to extend past where the cable is. You can see that basically I try to draw it just outside the elbow joint, but basically this is tiny to the point of being nothing. When I actually have it where my forearm is right in line with the cable, that line of force passes directly through the elbow joint. And even if I've got 50 pounds on here, 500 pounds, it might pull my whole body forward, but there's basically no torque, no challenge to the elbow joint, which means the triceps can just take a nap in that position. Now, if I walk closer and I'm in this exact same position, we look, I've got the same 50 pounds again. If we're looking at line of force, which again, at least the direction is always easy to see with the cable. Again, the line of force is going to extend past the hand. This is the moment arm. So again, this 90-degree angle where that line of force is closest to the elbow joint, that distance, again, same deal. All we have to know is it's much longer. This is near zero, or let's say it's a teeny tiny bit. This could literally be 10 times longer than that tiny amount. It can be 10 times the torque. And so all that means is, obviously, if you're standing very far back, that's the reason it's so challenging at full extension. If you're standing very close, that's why it can be much more challenging kind of in this mid-range elbow flexion extension. That's actually what's occurring at the joint. That's how the force and the load is actually influencing that joint, torque at the joint, and then obviously muscles that control that. From a programming standpoint, there can be a reason, I would say, for kind of a pre-exhaust type thing or for a feel type thing. You have a hard time feeling your triceps. Overloading this position might be a good option. So standing very far back and doing this just to really get a good strong contraction, or if you just like getting a really good strong contraction, maybe arguably pretty good for metabolic stuff, so it might be a decent thing for pump work. If you want to actually have more intramuscular force, more load, actually translating to more intramuscular force, more challenge for the muscle, then actually standing closer might be better for that. So if you're actually going to have something that maybe you're going to logbook, track, or progress, I would possibly do the variation of where you're standing closer. And all that stuff is honestly a little bit debatable. I'm just giving you a very loose framework. Both of them have a place. Both of them have merit. This is more about just understanding how your body position does influence and does change what occurs at the elbow joint, and obviously what the tricep has to do. We're going to leave the board. I'm sorry. We're going to come back over here for tip number 2. Tip number 2. Everyone knows this one pretty much, but I still see this as a massive mistake. So this is a good reason to get your cameras out in the gym and film yourself, aside from just flexing and looking good for the gram, is take a look at your upper arm as you're doing press downs. But the thing that I'm going to give you a little extra tip is actually look at your upper back, specifically your shoulder blades as well too. Make sure they are locked in stone. Because if you have your upper arm moving, then that means 1, something other than your tricep could be doing work, or 2, when the cable's moving, it could actually not be translating to more challenge or more contraction of the tricep. It could just be moving because your upper arm's moving. The same thing that can influence that is your shoulder blades moving. So if I'm going into a press down, 2 things that are very common, as if someone's coming up into a press down, they let their upper arm pull forward. And lots of times as they initiate the contraction, they can initiate with actually their arm pulling down, especially when people use a lot of weight. It's very common to see pull up, drive down, pull up, drive down. And again, I'm not saying nothing's happening at the tricep. What I'm saying is you're going to finish, when you're coming up, that might be the end of the tricep actually changing length, and that's just upper arm pulling. Shoulder stuff is changing length there. And to initiate, if you initiate like this, your triceps not doing any of that motion. That's again some shoulder stuff doing it. So again, one is be aware of your upper arm and keep it locked in stone. It still actually challenges stuff to keep it still, but that way you know if I'm actually moving the rope, moving the cable, and obviously moving the weight that it's attached to, then this is going to be just isolated triceps doing it, and again, not having some other muscle actually move the weight. The other thing I want to show is people move their shoulder blades too. So if you move your shoulder blades, you can move that rope, you can move that cable, and it's not coming from the tricep. And a very common thing on this one more is to finish. So as people come and it's like, it's really hard, can I finish? They do this kind of up and rolly forward type thing, which again, it's stuff moving that might move the cable, but might not actually be coming from a tricep contraction. So the two things to focus on there, I would say when you start, and especially a heavy set, it's more important, pull the shoulder blades in a position you can hold them. They don't have to be pulled all the way back. They don't have to be pulled all the way down. I think that's a fine place. Pull them somewhere where they can stay still. So maybe somewhere almost there. So I pull them back a little bit, pull them down a little bit, and then just lock them in nice and tight, and then lock your upper arm in stone. So as you're going, I feel like I have tightness through the muscles around my shoulder blades. So, you know, traps, mid-lower traps, rhomboids, keeping my shoulder blades still, and I'm using some muscles around my shoulder joint to keep my upper arm still as well too. So again, make sure that if the cable's moving, the rope is moving, whatever is moving, it's from your tricep and not from something else. Tip number 3, pick a handle that will fit your structure. So I don't even have a fixed straight bar handle or even a V-bar handle. Those are not bad. So again, no handle's bad, no rope's bad or better or worse or whatever. Arguably different handles will fit more people. So if I have a room full of 100 people and they said, well, what's gonna fit these 100 people the most or the most of these 100 people, it probably wouldn't be a straight metal handle, whatever straight bar handle, probably wouldn't even be a little V-bar handle. The wider your shoulders are, the harder it is. Like if I can't basically keep my upper arm perpendicular to the ground, so if when your arms are at your side, they stick out at all, and for guys even bigger than me, it kind of looks like this type of thing. It's impossible. If you look, if I'm here, this is my position, I'm keeping my upper arm still, and I just extend my triceps, what happens? The hands have to come apart. That's just my structure. That's just how it's set up. So if I was on a straight bar, what are your options? Well, you could rip the bar in half, in which case you're done with working out, you win, and you don't need to be training your triceps anymore. Assuming you can't rip the bar in half, the only option that people do, big guys grabbing that little baby handle, is this type of thing. It turns into some sort of internally rotation. Your whole upper arm has to kind of internally rotate. Shoulder joint generally has to move. Is that horrible? No, but just realize as you're moving that cable, you're moving that bar, stuff other than your triceps is moving it. And then I would make the argument that is this position, internal rotation at the end, fantastic position to be in? Maybe, maybe not. Might be fine for somebody, might not be great on the shoulder joint for somebody else. And again, the issue is we do the bodybuilder thing. If you're Mrs. Jones in the gym, you're doing press downs once a week for 3 sets of 10 at a perceived level of effort of a 4.5, probably couldn't make any difference less in the world. But if you're Mr. Meathead bodybuilder that's doing 8 million working sets and partials and drop sets and strip sets and training 5 times a week while you're yelling at your training partner, then some of that stuff probably becomes more important. So if you can get your arms kind of tucked right in at the side, upper arm perpendicular to the ground, you can also pronate, a full 180 degrees, so palms straight down, which I have a hard time doing. And you can have things move right in plane like this. You can see this is not super comfortable for me with nothing. If you can do that, then that straight bar, then that V-bar might be a good fit. Generally, that's people with a little bit more narrower shoulders and generally a little bit less tissue. So what are the next best options? Here's this thing called a rope. So again, obviously, as I demonstrated doing this, obviously as the hands come apart, the rope can be a great option because it allows your hands to come apart. If you're really big, the only issue is you come to finish, imagine you're bigger than me, you're really pulling out this direction. It almost becomes relatively inefficient trying to pull a cable this direction while most of your force is being applied this direction. And it technically doesn't line up great with a joint either. Here's a great invention if you're huge. I invented this myself. I call it 2 ropes. So again, I got patent pending on that one. I'll come back with you guys on that one. 2 ropes. Here we go. And now we've got something where it lines up even better. Someone right now sitting at home has something around them that's a huge waste of money, that's not helping them get in good shape, and they're gonna say, my gym doesn't have 2 ropes. Rah! I got these on Amazon. Right now, if you think about it hard enough, Amazon will send you a drone with a rope and automatically charge your account. It depends on when you're watching this video. That might not be a joke 10 years from now. But anyway, buy another rope if training is important. Yeah, I know that sounds silly. Someone's like, I'm gonna buy a rope, I'm gonna bring my own rope to the gym. How much money do you spend on pre-workout? How much money do you spend on energy drinks? How much money do you spend on something sitting near you right now that you don't really need? Now again, if you're watching this and you're like, I don't really care about working out that much, I don't care about 2 ropes, then don't buy 2 ropes. Odds are you're not big enough to need 2 ropes if you're thinking that anyway. But if you're actually big enough that you need 2 ropes, then you should splurge that 20 bucks, buy yourself a rope, and bring your own rope to the gym. The other option is you could use a single handle. Now you're saying, oh, my gym doesn't have a single handle. Watch this. Patent pending. You could just have it really long like I did, but eventually runs out. I'm inventing this too, patent pending. I call this a knot. You tie that, and look at this. I've got a single handle. So single handles can be a great option for, again, if the whole goal is if I just want this cable lined up with my upper arm, lined up right through the elbow joint, you can stand in whatever position is comfortable. There's some comfortable position here. There could be reason to go out here. You could even go a little bit across the body, whatever. Just see that cable is lined up through that upper arm, lined up through the elbow joint. The only thing I hate about single arm stuff, and I do hate single arm stuff, is it takes twice as long. I'm not patient. I don't like things that take twice as long, but I do that. Shameless plug, you'll see I use cuffs all the time. If you're watching this, these are probably in stock. The reason that I actually like cuffs as well too is for how much pressure I can get on the outside of the hand. So that is the shameless plug. That's why I use these so much. I love a neutral position, which obviously you can get with a rope as well too. I love having all that pressure through the outside, through the butt of my hand, and then I like grabbing a hold of it tight. So you can do obviously all the same stuff with cuffs. Obviously, it doesn't matter what cuff you use. These ones are just more anabolic because it has my logo on it, and that's scientifically proven by me saying it right now. That's what scientifically proven means, right? And obviously these are great for everything else in the gym, delts and all that kind of stuff as well too. So pick the handle that best fits you, and again, best matches your goal and who you are. Again, if you're Mrs. Jones watching this, you train triceps, again, perceived level of effort 4 once a week for 3 sets, probably not that big of a deal. If you're super duper meathead, or your goal is to be super duper meathead, you want to be doing this stuff 10, 20 years from now, I will tell you this right now, isolated elbow stuff for triceps, isolated elbow stuff for biceps are probably the most sneaky elbow killers out there. So again, it's actually not compound movements most of the time. Anybody can do anything wrong. It's actually not compound movements most of the time. Much more it's people doing single arm stuff that doesn't line up well. So it's worth figuring out now. It's worth figuring out what fits best. And if you're thinking somehow a metal handle is more anabolic, or it makes the force that your triceps are receiving more real, I would like to see some evidence to support that claim. Until then, trust me, a rope is just as anabolic as a metal handle or whatever. And if you have good form, you can load the crap out of it as well too. And of course, every other tricep exercise is great as well if it fits your structure. This is obviously just on getting better press downs. So if those tips helped, please share with some friends. Anyone you know that has elbows, that would be a good person to share this video with. And as always, if you have some thoughts, feedbacks, concerns, feelings, the comment section is here for you. Until the next one.